Yes, it's interesting.
I'm new to it, but I'm very interested.
By the time it's the third person like
These kinds of things.
You may come back also tomorrow and the day after.
Tomorrow actually it's about invitation, but Friday
But I was synthesis.
and I will be in touch with Helen.
Well, good evening. Welcome to IPPR. My name's Tony Dolphin. I'm the senior economist here. I'm just going to say a very few words before handing over to Greg Fisher, who's managing director of Synthesis, who's going to sort of run the show this evening. As I said, I just wanted to say that this seminar for us is part of a programme of work we're running called New Era Economics. The idea of that is to look at new ways of thinking about the economy, potential new goals that the economy could set itself, to look at new challenges which are facing the economy, and to try and bring that thinking and the ideas, those ideas to policymakers. I know very little about the subject we're going to hear about today, so I'm going to be a very interested audience member, looking and listening and trying to understand what I can take from this to take to policymakers. One of the key roles for me of think tanks is to listen to interesting new ideas and to try, and it can be tough at times, but to try and make them relevant for policymakers down the road in Westminster and in the rest of the country. So with that very brief introduction and my thanks to Rhett, to James and to Greg, I'll hand over to Greg, who's your MC for today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tony. No fish jokes, by the way, because my name's Fisher and his name is Dolphin. Okay? That's been done before. Thank you very much. Okay, so just to mirror the thanks, IPPR have been very kind to house this sort of intersection of two different sort of groups, I suppose. One is New Era Economics, but also the other is the 12 discussions that James has been sort of a part of over 12 days in London. So thank you to IPPR for hosting. So the discussion is New Era Economics and the Commons, and the subtext question is, can the new field of complex systems help us manage the Commons better? So I'd also like to quickly say thank you to three other people. Peter Challen, who very much did the sort of, say, the Taoist cultivating leadership to get us to this point, but also to George and Anna, who have put a great deal of sweat capital into organising this, and for James to be here. This is the 10th of 12 talks that James is giving, so I'm sure, like me, you're very impressed with his stamina, because it's 10 in a row so far. So I'm going to quickly introduce James, and then I'm going to quickly introduce Rhett, and then I'll hand over to James. James has been an analyst and administrator in the field of international development since 1975. Excuse me for reading this, but I want to make sure I get it correct. He has served as policy advisor and writer for many international politicians and leaders, including Edward Heath and Jimmy Carter. He was a policy advisor and press secretary for the Brand Commission in 78 to 84. He has also been an economic consultant for government agencies in more than 30 countries. There are more aspects to his bio, which is on the hyperlink to this on the webpage for this event, if you'd like to see. He's also the co-founder of the Global Commons Trust. To the far left is Rhett Gale. Rhett is a philosopher whose work has primarily focused on education and methods for improving thinking. He also has interests in the philosophy of leadership and teaching wisdom in the current academy. Through the miracle of the internet, whilst living in the UK, he teaches philosophy at the University of Colorado, Boulder, from where he received his PhD. So that's James and Rhett. So I propose James will be talking for about 20 minutes. Mobile phones off, please. James will talk for about 20 minutes. Rhett will then respond for about 5 minutes, and then we'll have about an hour for Q&A, so we can really get into the sort of detail, the meat of what we're talking about. So without any further ado, James Quilligan.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Tony, for having us here tonight. Thank you, School of Commenting. Thank you, Rhett, for being a responder to this panel. And greetings to my friends who have been to several of the seminars, and to all the new people who have come to one of these seminars for the first time. Thank you very much for coming. I am not going to be talking about policy tonight, particularly, if that's what you're looking for. A little more about the philosophical or contextual background of where I see complexity economics and some other developments as they pertain to this emerging field called the commons. And that's how I'm really addressing my remarks this evening. So just one brief mention about the meaning of the commons. Over the past 10 days, this is the 10th seminar in this series, and as we've given each seminar, and every different audience has responded, but the interests of all the different audiences were varied, and the presentations that I gave in each case was varied. So this particular presentation is quite different than the other presentations, as some of you who have been to many of the talks will recognize. And the commons are this emerging field that is rapidly penetrating into a lot of different disciplines. And you may know it because of Elinor Ostrom and her work, but there are also a number of other commons activists around the world who are contributing to the emerging theory. So it's a very exciting movement, and it's creating quite a bit of buzz among policymakers, I think, but particularly in the area of civil society, it's making its biggest mark. As you know, over the past 40 years, human demand for renewable resources has overwhelmed the Earth's capacity to produce them. During this same period, ecological economists like Kenneth Boulding, Nicholas Georgescu-Roegen, Herman Daly, and Robert Costanza have been considering the interdependence and coevolution of natural ecosystems and human economies in time and space. The present economics of utility, efficiency, and cost-benefit analysis arose from the 19th century economics, which was based on Newtonian physics. 19th century economics made three seminal errors which remain in our current system, all of which demonstrate that the idea of a value-free economics is unrealistic and unsustainable. In the first place, 19th century economics was conceived as a closed equilibrium system with no inputs from or outputs to the outside world. In other words, all energy originates and stays inside the system. The second problem with 19th century economics is that it was developed before the second law of thermodynamics was discovered. And this recognition still has not been incorporated into the economic system. Hence, there is no measure of entropy in our current economics to account for the disorder or randomness in the system that is increasing through time. These two errors led to a third error. Modern economists believe that self-interest and perfect rationality are the drivers of human incentives in the economy. These views of human nature are made on the assumption that all of the variables in economics are causal. It's becoming more and more apparent that we cannot continue to base our social exchange systems simply on causal units like currency, prices, contracts, households, factories, corporations, jobs, consumer demand, individual preferences that follow rates of growth which are not commensurate with the biosphere in which they exist. Consumer demand, markets, technologies, business plans, stocks of natural resources, all of these fundamental units